Today we have a very special guest, my older brother, Lester Ellis Jr. Lester is the head coach at Hitfit and responsible for developing the training programs across our multiple locations, as well as developing the coaches to deliver them training sessions effectively. Les, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you
very much for being with us here today.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much for having me.
For anyone that knows you knows that you are unapologetically yourself and you don't change who you are or what you believe in for anyone. This quality makes you a great leader because people gravitate towards your certainty, and I think it's one of the reasons why you're such a great coach. Even though I'm your brother and we grew up together, I feel as our upbringing was a little bit different at times because we experienced different versions of our parents at the same age, and it's something that I'd like to touch on. Talk to us about your childhood and your influences growing up.
Well, I've had many different influences from my mum, who was there from ever since I can remember. You know yourself, she's been heavily involved in our lives, and I'm the eldest of us four boys. So it was me and then my brother Jake, who were pretty close in age, and then you came along after me and Jake were already besties. We were probably I think six something. Yeah, I think there's about 6 years between us. And then you joined the little clan, and we were playing around at that point all the way through at the farm, and because we had I don't know, do you remember the family farm?
Very vaguely.
Yeah. So me and Jake were like little cowboys doing that, catching butterflies, doing all that kind of jazz. And then when I was 19, Dempsey came along, and our lives all changed at that point because Dad come good, and you know he was over the fact, he had come to terms with the fact, should I say, that his career's over. You know, he tried again with Mundine and whatnot, and then when Dempsey came along, he kind of quieted down a little bit, you know, and things were a lot more calm. But Mum was always someone. Well, I know for myself in our childhood, she was always someone that sheltered us from that and took the brunt of it, you know. But yeah, in regards to influences, I feel like Mum, the influence she had on me was just always feeling safe, always feeling like she was in control, calm, and that then enabled me to be a better older brother to you guys. And I was always very excitable as a kid and this and I'm just so grateful that we had her in our lives. And then, you know, Dad, he was always like the inspiration. We can do anything. We can take over the whole world kind of influence, I feel, with Dad. You know, if Dad can do it from sunshine, having nothing, as if we can't do it, you know, and that's evident with us today, with the gyms and with our attitudes and things like that, and Jake and his promotions, and you know, little Dempsey, we don't know which way he's going to go just yet, but yeah, Dad's influence was the opposite to Mum. Mum was like the protector, and always felt like she had it right, and then that would then transcend through me, and then you know, to my younger brothers and whatnot, and really shape the person that I am. Dad made me feel like I could do anything, and then also the grandparents, you know, Grandpa Keith from Dad's side, from the boxing aspect, but prior to that, Mum's parents, yeah, our grandma and our grandfather, Rose and Anthony. And Anthony was more the person that kind of diluted the part of me that is an Ellis and Revan and this and that. And I feel like that's made us a better version as the next generation than Dad, because we can think things through. We're not just we get it done to the same degree, but we think about it and we work that out. So he was an influence in the responsibility and how to think of things in a different way to how us Ellises are naturally inclined to do so. And then Grandma Rose, or Nana Rose, she was like an extension of Mum. Wherever Mum was, you know, Rose was there, and yeah, she was just like a double whammy to Mum, I feel. So all those influences made me who I am today, I feel, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of them, because without them, I'll speak for myself, but I think that you would agree, and Jake would as well, and Demps, that without that, we could have fell into many different little crevices and things like that. That that Ellis mind frame makes us great at anything we do, but whether that's good or positive, it comes down to the influences in our life. So yeah, mate, that's that. I remember as a kid being very excitable. If I'm upset, I'm very upset. If I'm angry, I'm very angry. If I'm excited, I'm that excited I can't sleep. If I'm happy, I'm very, very happy. If I'm passionate, same. You can't beat me in passion. And if I'm just not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So they're probably my earliest memories growing up, and they're the influences that made me who I am today.
Absolutely, 100%. And for those who don't know, our dad, Lester Ellis, was a 5-time world champion. How did that impact you either positively or negatively growing up?
Both, I'd say. I like to kind of start with the negative and then go to the positive. I feel like the negative was we're always going to different places that no one from our schools knew about. And I'll speak for me here. It's like, I used to feel like I could never relate to anyone at school. So what they're talking about, the dad's doing dishes, mopping something, compared to our dad, he's out there fighting, talking about smashing someone, or, like that kind of aspect. And mum was maybe the person that took both those roles for, let's say, a person that doesn't have someone that's in the spotlight, that doesn't have a parent that's in the spotlight. And I feel like the negative for me was never feeling like I could relate to anyone outside of my own family who was experiencing the same thing. And also when he would have his ups and downs, his highs, he's very similar to me, or should I say I'm very similar to him in the sense that the highs are very high and his lows are very low. Like when he's excited about something, he's revving, he's on, and then when he's upset, he'll go quiet for a week and then say something that we can hardly remember that was from a week ago. And we're like, far out, he's still thinking about that, So it was always very much about mum tried to make it about us boys, but she couldn't help the fact that she had to make it about dad as well when he was struggling. And I feel like the negatives were that sometimes, at no fault of mums or dad, we were involved in that. And there was some negatives with that, seeing things that maybe a lot of kids shouldn't have seen. And, dad being upset and finding ways to cope, drinking and whatever. And for us, that was the norm. But then when you go to school and compare that to other people, you realize it's not the norm. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's a negative. The positive is just feeling like you're Superman, feeling like you're invincible. If there's something that you need, mum can sort it out. If mum can't sort it out, she'll talk to dad. Dad will make a phone call and get it done. So I feel like they really balance each other out. And as you grow up, you tend to remember and be appreciative of the positive aspect of it more so than the negative. But when you are becoming a man, those negatives, you might remember little things here and there, and they help you to not follow in those footsteps or go, well, I've seen that before. I know that's not necessarily the way to go about things. So yeah, we've been very fortunate in that way, and I feel like that's what makes us who we are and makes us think and act and feel like we can do anything because of that. So you've got to be grateful for it.
We certainly are fortunate to have experienced both the positives and negatives, and absolutely I think that has shaped us to the people we are today. You were obviously boxing as a kid and teenager as a direct influence of dad, and we all kind of dabbled in boxing. How did boxing shape the person you are today?
Yeah, so I started boxing when I was about 10. Prior to that, it was always about boxing. I remember coming back from school and Dad had a gym in Melton and would go there, and me and Jake, all we could be worried about was going to the fish and chip shop next door, and we'd just be eating whatever we could get, and minimum chips or whatever, and Dad's doing his boxing thing or whatnot, and you know, we didn't really care too much about that outside of that being Dad's job and whatnot. But you know, once I was 10, and I had a little situation at school where we got into a little bit of a kerfuffle, could you say? I remember thinking, man, I need to learn how to fight here proper. You know, like I know everything about it, but that just made me want to start doing it. So I started running around the block. I'm 10 years old, but I feel like I'm 25. I'm running around the block thinking I know everything, training, asking Dad all different questions and whatnot. And then literally a year later, 11, I don't want to say because it's on camera, but yeah, I had my first fight at 11. My Uncle Keith weaved some magic, and you're meant to be 12, but yeah, I had my first one at 11, for sure. That's on the record. And from that point, man, I was fit, I was strong, I was feeling great, and I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep going with it. So I kept going through with that all the way up until I finished high school. And yeah, that just, from 10 years old on, that's what created Coach Les. I feel prior to that is where my compassion and being able to understand people and whatnot, I feel like that part of it was prior to me starting boxing. And then I pretty much saw everything boxing had to offer, from Dad doing it, from training with my Uncle Keith, and pretty much doing it every day after school constantly. And seeing what it was able to do for me, for these people that are just being naughty at school and whatnot, and then and filling me with confidence and going, you know what, I'm not copping that. I'm not doing that kind of thing. So yeah.
Mm. And in addition to boxing, you've had experience in film and television, starring in shows such as Underbelly and Ja'mie Private School Girl. Were there any similarities between boxing and acting?
Oh, very much so. I remember I was full-fledged into boxing prior to making the decision I'm going to do acting. I remember watching Titanic one day, and I'm like, man, I was thinking about that movie for 4 days after. I want to be able to have that effect on people, you know, like just far out, man. I want to resurrect the Titanic. I want to do this and that. That's my passion coming out. But from watching that movie, that's what I remember feeling that, oh, mate, if that can happen for me, that movie can do that for me, then, you know, I would love to just be a part of being able to do that for someone else. So I was still fighting and training and doing all the rest of it, but I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go to an acting school and just see what happens. And I used everything I learned in boxing, you know, dedication, determination, discipline, desire, not taking no for an answer, into my acting. And you know, you have to learn how to speak, and you got to stop talking like a little Westie, because we went to school in St. Albans, so it was all that. I was very raw, but Mum always taught me that ignorance is bliss, and I just went in there with no idea. I'm sure if I knew what it entailed starting, I would have been, oh, no, it's not for me. But I just went in there and just started loving it and doing it, started going to auditions and whatnot, and with the confidence of feeling like I'm going in there and winning it, I just started landing roles, you know, and just doing it like that. So boxing, it was pretty much everything that every attitude that I would have and employ to boxing, I only knew how to do that with acting. So I feel like it was exactly the same. And it just shows you that, you know, with that kind of fighter's mentality and that never give up attitude, you're able to do anything, you know, something so different, like acting in the world of entertainment. So, yeah.
There you go. And I remember when Ja'mie came out, it brought a level of fame that none of us had experienced before. Even though obviously Dad was famous, he was more known to the older generation, and the younger generation, unless they followed boxing, didn't really know who Dad was. And I remember once when shortly after the show aired, we were at Queensland, I think we were at Dream World or Movie World, and like, you know, not only were you getting recognized, but the big like crazy moment for me was like a girl was on a ride and it's like, oh my God, that's Mitchell.
yeah. I remember
and that was like when we first walked in, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then obviously, you know, not only and then at that day, of course, people were coming up and taking photos, but just that period was like you're constantly getting recognized everywhere you went, because the show obviously was a massive, massive hit across all of Australia. What was that period like for you?
Oh, mate, I swear again, that's another positive of growing up with, you know, someone, a parent that's in the spotlight. Oh, I knew how to handle it to an extent because I always see Dad do it. Every time we're walking down the street, oh, Lester, how are you, mate? I know how to handle that, but I didn't want to take it. I knew there was two ways to go about it. One way is, oh, you know, look at me, this and that. And the other way is just having gratitude for it and being modest. And I always loved the fact that Dad was like that. So I just took it in my stride, but it was hard. You know, some days you want to go to the shops and just get something, and it all becomes about everything outside of going and getting some milk and bread. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I remember there was ones where all the security had to escort me out because a few girls found out, and then there was I never ended up getting my milk and bread, but you know, you just take it as a grain of salt. And look, it was a fantastic experience. I loved it, but at the same time, I did start to realize, like, you know what? I loved acting for what I was able to do for people, but then part of the job that no one sees is your everyday life, and you know, being able to, you know, do day-to-day activities or personal things or whatnot. It impedes in that a lot. It does make it hard, but just witnessing that and experiencing it, and you know, being able to do what I was able to do and show my brothers and whatnot as well. I feel like that was great, seeing it on TV. Oh, when's the next one coming out? It was just very new. You wake up one day, there's 50,000 followers, and then people saying, open this account. And I didn't have Facebook or Instagram or nothing. I'm just not really that way inclined. And then there was all these fake accounts, 100,000 followers, this, that, and then my management's calling me up saying, mate, you got to do it. I'm like, no, I don't like it. That many messages, I haven't slept in 3 days, mate. And they're like, oh no, we've got you the rights to this one that says Lester Ellis Jr. And then I'm looking at all the things, I'm like, whoa, man, this is a completely different world, you know? And I think maybe even a little bit different. Knowing how to act, I definitely learned from Dad, but the new world of social media and things like that, Dad couldn't help me with, because Dad was there if you're seeing him face to face or a letter. But you could literally sleep, check your phone, and then there's 50 messages there. And you're like, okay, what do I do here? If I open one, I've got to open them all. Yeah, and so it was that, navigating that. And I can just imagine what it'd be like for someone like Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt. Oh my gosh. That's why you see them sometimes, they're like, oh, stay away from that, because it is literally 3 full-time jobs. If you're a people pleaser, if you're someone that cares what others think, it's a full-time job, because you open one, you're like, oh, what about that person? Or that person's struggling with something, needs my help, or it has that effect. So it was a whirlwind of things, from the most positive, crazy highs to how do I handle this, you know? So yeah.
Absolutely. And from there you went on and you went to LA and, you know, done some work in LA. Talk to us about the crossroads between wanting to pursue a career in acting, but also still being passionate about your roots in boxing.
Yeah, well, boxing and acting, and then acting and boxing, they never really worked against each other. It was very much, okay, I want to have an outlet, I want to be a certain character. I'll just draw from experiences from my life, or people I've seen with how I've grown up. You know, coming in and out of our lives with Dad or one of Dad's mates or whatever it was. Yeah, through dealings and business ventures or whatever interviews, all that kind of stuff really helped me know how to handle a character and go, oh, you know what, I might not have experienced that, but I can give it a pretty a red hot crack in regards to what I think it could be like. So I feel like boxing and upbringing really helped me with that, and I was still fighting, training, doing all that, you know, all the way up until Uncle Keith passed away, really. And then after that, it was more about helping others. I remember Dad said to us, he kind of said, look, mate, you can give it a go and try it, but you got to get to a point. You got to get to a point where you give back to others. Because I got my head smashed in for 24 years. Because I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Mum crying, nervous, upset. you give it back to the kids that need it, or the people that need it, yeah? And then we saw him doing that with gyms and whatnot, and like, even, it doesn't have to be a fighter, it could be anyone. And it really helps their life and really motivates them and gets them going, and does for them what it did for us, you know, in regards to the acting and the this and the that. And something like LA, to get back to your question, or that part of your question, that's very intense, mate. Like, you look at something like pilot season, you've got scripts that are sometimes 10 pages long that you've gotten the night before, and it's already midnight. And it's, you're 9 a.m. in the morning, you gotta put on an American accent, do all that. And boxing helped me deal with that. But it was at that point, I'd gone to LA a few different times where I was like, you know what? I think Dad's right. I'm not spending time with Dempsey. I'm not spending time with my brothers and my family. You gotta be there for, like 6 months of the year. And then if you get something, you don't come back and see your family for God knows how long. And I think the values that Mum instilled in me and us growing up, I started feeling that. I started feeling like, man, I'm away. I'm not involved in my family, and I feel like my happy place is when I'm with my family, and when like us, we're working together. We're doing that. I'm happy doing that. Although I did love it, and I do love it, and if there's a role that comes along that I absolutely love, I'll do it. But to make it a full-time career for me, once I was going to LA and going overseas, it was it was then taking me away from boxing and taking me away from my roots. And I feel like that's when I had to make a decision. Yeah. Yep,
absolutely. And you mentioned family, and recently you became a dad to a beautiful little girl, River Rose, who I think's turning 3 in February. My goodness, how fast that's gone.
Right at the end of Jan, she's turning 3.
Okay, yep. What has fatherhood taught you?
Again, it just furthers how happy I am when I'm around family. Yeah, and just seeing her grow. And I remember stressing, mate, when's she gonna walk? When's she gonna, not walk, crawl, and then walk, and then talk? And to me, it's very high on my value system, because I'd find myself worrying about those things because I love her so much, you know what I mean? And she softened me in many ways and made me just want to be the best man I could be. It really made me appreciate how Mum felt with us boys as well. And you know, that love that you can only have for a child. And her, little River, she's the girl that Dad always wanted. She had us, Mum and Dad had us 4 boys. And he's always said he wants a little Briley, he wants a little girl, comb her hair, he's sick of buying trucks and all that stuff. And now River's come along and he's had that. So she's like our little princess. And she's one of the most important things in the world to me. So yeah, she's really added a layer of joy to all of us. So.
And how do you think your life experiences have helped you become a great coach?
I feel like without every single experience, every single trial and tribulation, I wouldn't know how to handle things as they come up. It's not just about being a good coach. It's about understanding what that person's going through. And you might have two different people going through the exact same thing, and you've got to handle them both differently, because you've got to tailor for the individual's needs. And these are things that my Uncle Keith taught me from 10 all the way up until I was in my early 20s, going to that gym every day in Sunshine and seeing that, and seeing like a real hard-ass, strong, best of the best gym with the best of the best fighters. You really pick up many different things and see many things that many different people are going through, and how my Uncle Keith would handle that. And then also my experiences with Dad, with Mum, with this and that. I just feel like I don't know what it is, but if I see something, I've got an innate understanding, and I'm confident that I know how to handle that for that particular person. Now, it might be, I remember when I was young, I had one of my fights, and I was the kind of kid that like I said to you, and like you know, I'm passionate, excited, and Uncle Keith needed to calm me down. Instead of saying, listen, mate, calm down, you got to start throwing a jab, or he'll just smack me in the head, slap me as hard as he can in the head. Oh, shit, woke me up straight away. And I was like, okay, well, yes, Uncle Keith, what do I need to do here? I was like 11 or 12 years old. So that's what I needed then, young. And you know, for yourself, Grandpa Keith, he's a learner. He likes to teach you, and he learns different things, writes it down, and then explains it and teaches it in that way. And that was fantastic for you, wasn't it? And sometimes I felt I needed that. Sometimes you felt you needed a push, or whatever it is. So all those different aspects, I can't put it into words, but I just feel like when I see a certain situation in regards to boxing or whatever it is, I feel I understand what that person needs at that particular time to get the best out of them. So yeah, I appreciate you saying I'm a great coach, but I just feel like I'm able to do that. And just like Dad always said to us, start helping those that need it. So I want to help all the other coaches. I want to get that right for them, tune them into that, and get the best out of them also. That's where I'm finding my happiness at the moment.
And you touched on it, at this stage in your life, what are your hopes and aspirations for Hitfit?
Hopes and aspirations for Hitfit, mate. I want it to be the greatest gym of all time, just like our Uncle Keith before us with the Ellis Bros gym, but his wasn't necessarily multiple locations because he was the king of it. He was the head of that. Without him, it wasn't necessarily something that can multiply, right? But then we've taken that knowledge, and then across all us brothers, able to then spread that to everyone else. So my aspiration for it, and my hopes, is that we can touch as many people as we possibly can with our unique upbringing. That's what I'd love to do. And Darcy, that's your job, mate. You get it going, you put it where it needs to be, and I'll either be there or get the coaches ready who are going to be there to spread that word and keep, you know, Uncle Keith's memory alive first and foremost, and also our teachings. And because, mate, at the end of the day, if we don't do it, it's going to die with them, isn't it? Like, if I never trained and trained with my cousin Heath and Jake at that gym, when Uncle Keith passed away, would have died with that. Wouldn't have, just, and what a shame that is, because Dad's not necessarily doing that. He's sick of boxing, right? Like, he loves it for us or whatnot, but for him it's a job. So it lives in him, but he's not spreading it the way we are and helping people like we are, because he'll do PTs here and there and help, but it's not something that's necessarily his dream. But for us, yeah, I'm glad that we're able to have that and spread it.
Absolutely, and boxing has changed our lives. Well, everyone in our organisation, really. You know, from us, from the leaders, from, you know, our team, from obviously the members that do it. So part of our mission is to transform as many lives as possible through the vehicle of boxing. Can you comment on how boxing can change someone's life?
It can change your life by bringing out the part of you that gets it done, I feel. Because, for instance, you think about it for what boxing is, right? It's a purest form of sport. You're there with one other person, no one can help you do nothing, and you got to go out there and give the best of yourself with yes, of course, you've had your coaches and you've had your trainers and whatnot, and your team help you up to that point. But if you're having a bad day, no one can help you. That's not the nature of it. So I feel like having that and feeling like, you know, it's all on you. Everyone's there to help you, but at the end of the day, when it's time to pull the trigger, you got to do it. I feel like with that, doesn't matter if you're fighting, doesn't matter if it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter the color, doesn't matter the age, size, shape, nothing. Once you can feed that version of yourself, you make it stronger, right? Uncle Keith used to always say to me, depends what wolf you're going to feed. If you feed the negative one or the weak one, that weak one gets stronger. It's still weak, but now it's stronger and it can beat the strong one. But if you feed the strong one beats the weak one. And it's whatever one you're feeding, right? And boxing teaches you that, to feed the one that gets you to the place that you want to go. And I try every day, like even tonight, I have 5 different things in my head as to what I'm going to say to the members, and then, you know what, that might change when I see someone going through something else. I'll make it about that. You have to be adaptable, just like boxing. I've got a plan, I'm going to be doing this, and now all of a sudden they come out southpaw. What are you going to do? Or crumble in the corner? No, you got to find a way through it, right? So, yeah, even like with this interview, it's very much what I'm feeling in that moment. I can't just have it all scripted, because boxing doesn't teach you to do that. Yeah, you can have it scripted, and you're going to lose. It might work 10 out of 10 times for you, but then on that one odd occasion where you have to adapt, it's no good. So it's better to be able to, of course, have an overall goal, and then have that in the forefront of your mind so you make the right decisions, but you've got to adapt to what's happening and roll with the punches, as they say, and boxing teaches you that. A great deal.
What advice would you give to someone that's thinking about starting but hesitant for whatever reason?
Another good quote that I learned from my great masters, and that would be, the hardest things in life are the most rewarding. If it's not hard, it's not rewarding. And if it's not hard, not many people want it. Anything that's hard and anything that you got to work towards is worth doing, and that there is what's valuable. So if you're finding it hard or you're hesitant, then that means go and do it, because otherwise it wouldn't have popped into your brain. Yeah, it wouldn't have come into your mind if it wasn't something that was meant for you. You just wouldn't have attracted that. So if you're someone that has that knocking on your door constantly, and that's something that is that you want to do and fear's holding you back, you got to ask yourself, what wolf are you going to feed? The wolf of fear, let that particular wolf get stronger, or are you going to feed the bravery wolf and let that one beat that one, and then go out and do it, and it just might be the best thing you've ever done. So yeah, that'd be my advice on that.
If you could go back and tell a young Lester Ellis Jr. one piece of advice, what would it be?
Far out, mate. I would say life is like the hardest opponent that you're ever going to face. Life is like the hardest opponent you're ever going to face. But hardest things in life are the most rewarding. And if you get through that, you're going to be very, very happy with the result. If life was easy, and number one, you wouldn't appreciate what you get. Number two, you wouldn't be a coach that knows a thing or two. You wouldn't be able to open up multiple gyms. You wouldn't be able to do all those things. You just have a comfortable life, and then you eat, sleep, die, and then that's it. And I don't think anyone wants that. Of course, everyone wants comfort. And every human has every human trait, but at the end of the day, you want to experience different things, don't you? So don't be scared of how hard it is. Just bite your tongue, bend your knees, ass out, head down, look through your eyebrows, and keep banging until it's over.
Absolutely. Les, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you, brother.
And I look forward to many fruitful years together, brother.
Of course, brother. Of course, man. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. Love you, bro.